everybody. This is Chris Dicenso, Managing Partner, Growth Strategy Partners. Welcome to our webinar today on the 6 characteristics of effective KPIs. Goal here is really to help you develop more effective key performance indicators. Because honestly, if you don't have them, how do you know if you're achieving your goals? I will tell you, logistically, we are going to record this so you can watch it over and over again, and I will send you the copy of the PowerPoint when we're done. The other thing is questions and answers. If you have questions along the way, there should be a box on the right there. And if you type in questions, we'll try to get them during the podcast or the webinar. And if we don't, we'll get to them after. Today's agenda. Actually, Paul, you around? You there?
Hello, I'm here. Yes, hi, it's Paul Plutzik.
Hey, Paul. We're going to talk more about both of us. Here's our agenda for today. We'll tell you about myself and Paul. We'll tell you about some definitions on metrics, measures, and KPIs. We'll go through these 6 characteristics and why we think these are important. We'll show you some examples and then summarize the key points. Regardless of the fact that I'm from New England and I talk fast, we only have 30 minutes, so we are going to go fast. So let's quickly talk about us. I'm the guy on the left, Chris Dicenso. The thing that relates, I think, to this webinar with me, I'm an engineer, I'm a numbers guy. And I'm always about measuring things and seeing how well we're achieving goals, whether it be personal or business. And a lot of what we do, a lot of what I do is strategy and develop strategies for organizations. And if you develop a strategy, you need to measure how well you're achieving that strategy. That's where the KPIs come into play. So I've helped a lot of organizations build strategies, build the KPIs, and help them implement them and really see the success coming out of it. Paul?
Well, you can see from the information that I provide here that I've worked with a lot of different companies, and I think, based on what you were saying, Chris, I think what's important for me to say is that the work that I do with organizations is really about bringing them to a place that they're not, bringing them into the future. And just as you're saying, that one of the things I like about having this conversation about KPIs is I'm always concerned about an organization that sets up a strategic goal for itself and how they measure their progress along the way. I work with a lot of engineering companies, and let's say they want to build a bridge. Well, we know when the bridge is built, but what do we know about the whole project as it goes along? And organizations are the same. So I really like helping organizations set up signposts to move them into the future, to bring them to a place where they're not.
That's great. And for those listening, so you know who's here, we actually have about 40 states, or 40% of the states participating in today's webinar. Most of you are CEOs, presidents, CFOs, GMs, and maybe some other executives. And it's very diverse from an industry perspective. We actually have manufacturing, distribution, we have banking, we have retail, we have aerospace and defense. And then the size of the company is a mix between large, medium, and small companies. So it's a pretty diverse group here, Paul.
Yeah, very broad. That's great. Yeah.
Very nice. Last thing is about us, Growth Strategy Partners, our firm. The key with Growth Strategy Partners is we've accelerated the revenue, profit, and talent growth for privately held businesses by implementing what we call these 7 keys to growth that you see here on the screen. We've done research to identify what drives long-term successful growth. The KPIs is actually a subset of the effective growth planning. So you need, from the strategic planning, you'll link that to the KPIs. That's where this topic comes into play. But what we're really proud of is at the bottom, the results that we've achieved with our clients. So on average, 220% average profit improvement. And we have a 7.4 multiple of return on professional fees, which basically means what our clients pay us, what we give back to them in profit improvement. So we're kind of proud about that.
Yeah.
Let's get into it. Well, let's talk about measures, metrics, and KPIs.
Yeah, so we just want to offer you some definitions here, because there's a lot of terms that are thrown around in the whole conversation about KPIs. So here's, kind of 3 key terminologies. One is measure. As we say here, it's a standard of measurements. It's an indicator. For a lot of organizations, as an example, they may track, as we talk here about units or dollars, customers, members. And most organizations, of course, track things like hours worked. And so what we're trying to say here is that these are important items to track. However, they're meaningless unless they become actionable, unless they're tied to some kind of improvement of the organization. So they're useful, but may not be helpful to setting the direction for the organization. the metric, standard of measurement, typically associated with organization's performance. For instance, manufacturing company, it may choose to examine, metrics around the number of raw materials sourced, or the number of defects per, I don't know, manufactured lot, or the number of steps in your manufacturing process. One of the things that's missing from that is the criticality. That is, how does it impact the business? That's where the KPIs come in. The key performance indicator, they're the subset of these of metrics, of performance indicators, and so they help you understand how are you achieving your strategic goals. And if you look at some of the examples that we've offered here, as I said, measures, and the measures we identify pounds, units, dollars. It starts to get a little more complex, where we talk about metrics looking at units per employee. And the KPIs, we start to talk about dollars of new products introduced, the dollar value, percent of new customers, and perhaps specific market segments. So you can see that they're helping you measure your progress towards your strategic goal versus an operational indicator.
Great. Well said. Focus on strategy. It's important. So why are they important? So I was thinking about this. I mean, we all get caught up in the, I'll call the tactics of metrics and KPIs and all that, but why are these so important? Why are key performance indicators so important? And I thought of it this way. If, as Paul said, KPIs are really measuring how well you achieve your goals, well, the question is, why are we setting goals? And we've kind of looked at two ways of reasonings why you're setting goals. A, you want to mitigate some risks in the business. So that risk might be, customer concentration, market concentration. You might have some financial performance not doing well, competition's getting tough. You got risks in the business. So therefore, you're typically setting goals to offset those risks. Or on the other side, you've got some rewards you want to achieve. If you're the owner of a business and you want to grow it, that might be a retirement nest egg, if you will. So you want to grow it for retirement. You might have some personal goals. We're very competitive at times, and we want to achieve bigger and better things. You want to expand the business. Okay, this somewhat connects to the concentration or diversification. And then you've got competition. So, we're setting goals because we want to achieve something. Most of us listening today are here because we want to get better. And so we set goals to get better. How do you know if you're achieving your goals? And that's where the KPIs come into play. And so the real question is, how well have you set your goals and defined them? And then how well are you establishing KPIs to know if you're going in the right direction? Are you really achieving the goals that you want to achieve, mitigating the risks, and in a timely fashion? So that's, we think it's just most important. Really, it tracks progress.
So KPIs essentially help you determine if you're in your lane, if you're moving forward. We were, as Chris and I were preparing this, and one of the things we talked about is using, for instance, a dashboard. Well, for those of us with new vehicles, one of the electronic devices on a dashboard is a lane indicator. It tells us if we're going outside of our lane. KPIs are very much like that. Are we going in the direction that we set, and are we staying in the lane that we set to move into that direction?
You got those in your car? You got a new car, don't you?
Yes, I do, yes.
Oh, that's nice. I'll have to watch
it's very helpful. Right.
So, question for the audience. We're going to launch a poll here. And the question is, how well do your KPIs measure your progress towards your strategic goals? What I'd like you to do is just click on an answer. Are they helping you achieve your goals? Are they measuring your progress to goals very well? Somewhat well, average, not well, not at all? Give us an indication. It'd be interesting to know the audience, where are you in progress relative to building KPIs, measuring KPIs, and again, are they helping you identify how well you're achieving your goals? And as people do that, we got a good percent, almost half already voted, but keep doing this and then we'll share it with everybody. And then this will maybe, Paul, help us guide how much detail we go into or how much we get into the advanced level versus just a beginner's level, if you will, on the results here. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. So if everyone's, just about everybody has done this. fact, I'm going to write down some answers here. And I will
So what do we
share
get
it
for
with,
results?
I am going to close it and I'm going to share it with you. How's that?
Yeah, great. What a man.
Okay, so why don't you take a look here and I'm going to share it with everybody watching. You've got a big split across the top.
Wow.
But you've got, 30% down at not well. In fact, you had a 10% at the bottom. You got 40% not well and not well at all. So you take the 20% average out, you got 40% doing well, you got 40% not doing well.
All right.
What do you think?
Pretty much evenly split. I guess in some ways I'm not surprised, because for a lot of people, KPIs are a bit of a mystery, which is part of the reason we thought about doing this webinar. Just, shine some light on what a KPI really is and how it can help you.
Bingo. All right, let's do that.
I'm not surprised.
So let's talk now about the 6 characteristics. So what we've done as we were looking at this, and again, taking our experience in helping build goals and strategies and then KPIs, is we looked at what really makes for a very effective KPI. And we've really identified what we call 6 characteristics. And within those characteristics, we've identified if that characteristics, from your perspective, is being done at a beginner level, intermediate, or advanced level. So we're going to go through what these 6 are and show you what we define as beginner, intermediate, and advanced, and then you can decide how well you're doing and then work from there. So let's start with the first 3 are goal-oriented, measurable, and visible, and I'll explain those as we get into it. Goal-oriented really talks about, does your KPIs link to your goals? So if you're a beginner, you may not have a documented strategic plan. Therefore, the goals or the KPIs you have are more tactical. They're things that you have kind of decided we should start tracking, basic things like revenues, profits, margins, the basic stuff. More intermediate, you would be having what I call more undocumented strategic goals. So there may be some agreement, alignment on the executive team of what the goals are, but they're really not documented. They're a little more strategic, so you're maybe looking at new customer acquisition, quality, customer satisfaction. But the real advanced one, basically you have a documented strategic plan with strategies and the goals you're trying to achieve, and these KPIs are directly linked to them. And you start looking at a little more advanced ones like percent of new products introduced in a certain period of time, NPS is net promoter score, growth of sales dollars by region, by geography, by industry. So from a goal-oriented perspective, the more advanced ones, again, they're linking to the goals and they're more tangible. Measurable, as it says, you can measure them, but we're breaking down measurable into quantitative and qualitative. So the beginner has more quantitative goals. It's the easy things that you can measure because it's quantitative. You may be doing some comparisons. Quite often you see what I call the year over year, the YOY, or period to period comparison. So you might look at one quarter compared to the other quarter, but it's mostly quantitative, again, probably mostly financial. As you become more intermediate, they start bringing in some more qualitative KPIs. So that, again, is going to be around people or something less tangible. And then they start adding what we call trends or charts. A little theme we'll pass through today is that I'm not a big fan of the period-to-period comparison because, again, it's just 2 points in time. We're really driving trending or charting. We'll talk about dashboards. But as you get more of the advanced measurable category, they're looking at both quantitative and qualitative KPIs, so employee engagement or culture or believing in the mission, vision, values. Some of the more subjective KPIs is being measured, and they've got what we call a full trend analysis. So it's charting, it's trending. It's not just a period to comparison. The third category is visible. If you don't have visibility to the KPIs, how can they be acted upon? So again, beginner level, it's just at the executive level. From a tool perspective, you might be using a spreadsheet or some manually based tool. As you get more advanced into the intermediate, you've now expanded those KPIs. Again, KPIs, we're not talking about shop floor or on the banking floor or retail floor, but the KPIs of the business, executive and the next level of management or so is seeing them. They may be built into your enterprise system, ERP system, computer system, or some similar tool, But again, the more advanced one, the whole company sees the KPIs. You know, quote unquote, I can walk down to the floor, I can walk down to the retail store, and I can ask anybody, you know, what are the key goals and how do you measure that? And they know that and they see it. It's dashboard based. It may be online, it may be automated, but it's very visible to everybody. So the more successful ones, highly visible, highly measurable, quantitative and qualitative, and linked to the goals. That's the first three. Next three is going to be for Paul.
Well, the next three, again, we think about the first three, goal-oriented, measurable, and visible. The next three really do essentially balance out, as it says in this first category, balance out your KPIs. Now, Chris, we're about halfway through, so let's go through. I'm going to go through this one fairly quickly. So fill in that first category, if you would, please, under balance. So we get an idea of what we're looking at the beginner level under balance. And as Chris said before, primarily we'll be looking at what we can, the data that we currently have, and for most organizations at the beginning stage, it's primarily financial. We're going to be looking at our profits, our margins, et cetera. As we grow and become more sophisticated, which is our last category, but we'll talk about that here, then we can look at perhaps our customers and how the customers are responding, perhaps to different marketing initiative or some process we're using. And we see as we become advanced, we can get information and put KPIs together from four perspectives. There'll be financial KPIs, customer-oriented, process, and some people, again, because we've become smarter and more sophisticated about our KPIs. The next one is the impactful. How do the KPIs impact our organization from the strategic side? And if we look at the first one, the beginner, they may not necessarily be tied to the strategy, but as we move up, this category, we can see that some of the KPIs get linked to rewards. And as we become more advanced, they become actionable throughout the company. And that's absolutely critical. The KPIs we need to be able to see some action that will impact the KPIs. We'll talk a bit about that versus leading versus lagging. The next category, in terms of sophistication, this is very important from a number of perspectives. One of the things we mean by sophistication here is, for instance, we're looking at the beginner level across left to right, primarily tracking financial, not a lot of accountability, not necessarily linked to rewards, and in simple ratios. Typically what happens is in that time when we're first getting started, our IT systems are not all that sophisticated. Plus, for many of us, we're really not sure what to track. We know it's important to track money, but we're not sure what else to track. As we get more sophisticated, we can identify more ratios and become much more complex, develop much more complex ratios, and also look at some benchmarking, comparing ourselves to other organizations in our industry, perhaps. And just to coin a phrase here, one of my grandchildren talks about things that are more better. And that's what we're talking about. As we move into understanding KPIs a little bit more, our KPIs, we can have more KPIs that are better in terms of understanding strategic direction of the business. So from early on, we're going to track the basics. As we get smarter and get more sophisticated, we'll begin to look at KPIs that are really connected to the relationship. They really have a relationship to our strategic goals.
Someone's asking, Paul, where the four perspectives came from. We probably should have identified that. When we build strategic plans, we typically use the balanced scorecard framework, which is where the word balance comes from. Mm-hmm. And therefore, if you've got balanced goals and strategies, you should have balanced perspectives. So there's typically four perspectives: financial, customer, process, and people. Sometimes becomes member rather than people, and there's other terms, mm-hmm. but it's kind of those four perspectives. Right. So those are the six, and we'll send out this PowerPoint so that you can look at all these, and then you can kind of check off or identify where you are, and then where do you need to get better. Right. So let's give you some examples here. We're 20 past, doing pretty good. We thought we'd give you a page of examples: customer, financial, process, people, and product. Kind of broke out the product and service out of one of those perspectives, which usually mixed in with the customer or process. But I thought I'd break that out to show you what we found are some of the more advanced, more sophisticated KPIs that really talk about bigger, longer-term goals. I'm not going to go through all of them, but we thought we definitely should leave you with some examples. In fact, the example we want to show you, we got two of them in particular. Working with two clients, one's a credit union, and they had some goals. I mean, there are a lot of goals, but two critical goals in that business was membership growth. They call it members, not customers. And then to be more efficient. And it's interesting, as we went through trying to define how to measure membership growth, the basic beginning discussion was, well, number of new members. Mm-hmm. But then as we started peeling that back, that discussion, the goal wasn't necessarily just to get new members, but it was to get better members. And then we started segmenting the types of members that they have from an engagement perspective. And the more engaged that they are, the more products that they're using from the credit union. So the KPI ended up being the percent of highly engaged members. And again, we've got goals and measures to identify how well we're achieving that. That's now becoming a very good rallying point around this credit union on not just growing membership, but highly engaged members. Mm-hmm. And then from an efficiency perspective, how do you measure the efficiency of a financial institution, bank, credit union? Well, we looked at people, and we looked at resources, and we looked at, geez, maybe there's a number of members that an FTE, which is a full-time equivalent, manage. Again, but we identified if we're going to drive accounts or members, maybe we should look at the number of accounts that they have. So we're trying to drive engaged members, which really means opening more accounts. So therefore, a great KPI that we found was the number of accounts per FTE. And the goal of this here is to maximize the number of accounts without increasing the FTEs, the people, at the same time. The other one was a food.
Chris, let me ask you a question. You know, it sounds like with the credit union, and we haven't really talked too much about this, but it sounds like they took essentially a lagging KPI. That is, they understood what they wanted to measure. They wanted to measure new members. And they changed it essentially, by the sounds of it, into a leading KPI because they made a distinction about the kinds of members that they wanted, because an engaged member sounds like it probably impacted the strategic direction of the organization more than just the member. Does that make sense?
Exactly. Peel this back 3 or 4 layers.
So a lagging KPI is looking in the rearview mirror. A leading KPI is an activity that moves you in the direction of accomplishing your strategic goal.
Bingo. So the other one, real quickly, just with time here, the food processor, again, they were looking at efficiency improvements, but growing a segment of their product line, which was organic and natural meats. So when we looked at the efficiency side, we identified that it wasn't that the direct labor was the key piece to this. And so we looked at a KPI of the pounds per direct labor dollar as a KPI to identify if we're getting more efficient. And then the organic side, it was, well, how many pounds of organic and natural meats, which was great, except the company wasn't tracking the pounds at that sub-segment level. So they were tracking beef and turkey and chicken and veal, but they weren't looking at it from organic or natural. So what did we do? We built a tool to help them do this. You're going to find at times when you want to start measuring something, a KPI, you don't have the data. So we got to go build this. And this is just a quick sample showing you the sales pound shipped by the subcategory. And you can see vaguely here, it's kind of by design, a little funny, vague, you know, organic, grass-fed, and so forth. So by building this tool, which, by the way, if you need a great tool, Tableau or Microsoft Power BI are two great tools. We actually helped this client install one of them for like $15,000 or less. It was very inefficient, very efficient. And then we could slice it by customer. So you'll see at the top here, that light blue is that organic beef grinds. And we could see that we were actually making an impact by increasing that volume. And then we could slice it by customer in the beef subcategory. So this is just, again, a tool that allows us to really understand or get the data to measure our success.
So this is really important to underscore the fact that we can collect a lot of data, but this is helping the data become useful to you, not only tracking what you've done, but starting to be innovative about those lagging indicators. And now, because you know what you want to track, and they can then become your leading indicators as you start to innovate around the things that you're doing to see how they're driving the business. A leading indicator helps you think about and helps you move in the direction of driving the business. This is a great example, Chris.
Great.
Very detailed.
And it was, the results was they achieved their goals because they had great KPIs. So in the last 5 minutes, let's do this, Paul. I want to do one more poll because it's been real quick, but I'd like to see if people could answer the question, what is going to be your number one challenge in developing an effective KPIs in your business? So if you, again, click on one of those, so it might be you don't have defined goals, you don't measure them well, there is not enough impact or accountability, which is, again, probably one of the biggest challenges. The accountability is weak. You've got the KPIs aren't balanced, so we're just looking at just financial and maybe some sales or customer-oriented ones. And then because this program only allows us to do 5 choices, not 6, we combined at the bottom weak visibility or unsophistication. So if you would click on that, and then we'll get some polls back here, and we'll get a results to see what the challenges are that others have, and you can see, where do you fit relative to the challenges you face and the challenges the others face. And then, Paul, I've got 4 minutes left, so once we go through this, we're actually going to wrap up because it's a quick 30 minutes, right?
Yep. That's what we promised.
Well, we want to keep it on time. So
yep.
Let me do, we've got almost 60-70% voting here. Once we get, there are another 10 seconds, I'm going to close this up, and then we're going to share that with you. All right, there we go. We got similar, why don't you take a look here. It's similar as the first time. We had the 3 at the top.
Yeah.
But the biggest one was at the bottom was weak visibility or basically unsophisticated KPI. So it sounds like they've got, and then not balanced.
Yeah.
Which is great to hear because usually it's accountability that we run into. They have some decent KPIs, but they're not accountable. And and sometimes not linked to the goals. But this looks pretty good. This looks
it does,
well.
yeah.
I mean, in the whole scheme of things, right?
And hopefully, because we're looking at the ones that are not balanced, the bottom 2 categories, and then weak visibility or unsophisticated, hopefully this webinar has been helpful to you, especially with the 6 categories, looking at how you can move up the scale in each of those, with those 6 characteristics, to help your KPIs become more sophisticated and or more visible.
Right on.
So hopefully this has been helpful.
Right. So now, let's summarize. So, look, KPIs should help you identify how well you're achieving your goals. And you see the 6 characteristics there: goal-oriented, measurable, visible, balanced, impactful, and sophisticated. I didn't get into a lot of this, but it's a journey. This is something that does evolve over time, and it isn't perfected necessarily the first time you do it. But it does start with you. It's up to you. Again, most of the people here are the president, CEO, senior execs. The suggestion we have is let's define what your current goals are. You got to document the goals. And then from there, evaluate what you have for your KPIs and then start improving them. It's not that difficult, but it is something that needs to be done. To the extent that many of you showed visibility and sophistication was the challenge, that might be where I might suggest that you work or focus on.
And as we're saying here, developing KPIs is a journey. So here's a suggestion that we have. We're at the end of this webinar, and you may be walking away from this webinar with a couple of questions. And maybe the questions came as a result of being in this webinar and thinking about your KPIs. Write them down. You may have 2 or 3 questions that you have as a result of this conversation, this webinar. Feel free to send them to us. You have our email addresses, obviously, because you responded to our email, or give us a call. And understand that there's no fee attached to this. One of the things that this helps us do is not only to understand your situation better, but for us to become more sophisticated ourselves and smarter about how to help people develop KPIs. So happy to help you out.
Great. Okay. So for everybody, I want to thank you for joining us today. We're going to wrap this up. We will get you the presentation, and probably in a day or so, you will have the audio. I see a few questions that were sent. We'll get those answered also separately. So everyone, have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.